renge kyo nam. Myoho renge kyo nam. Myoho renge kyo.
Hello, everyone. Sorry about the shaky camera. I seem to accomplish that every single time. Just a fact of my little setup here. All right. So, as I've stated before, turn that a little bit more. We're in the midst of a very long Gosho, and so I'm going to jump around between a couple of different Gosho just to keep the variety going. There's an important Gosho that I want to get to called the Daimoku of the Lotus Sutra. And I get this question a lot, or I get, if not the question, there's hesitations, or anyway, there's a lot of misunderstanding, even amongst those of us who practice many, many years, what we're actually chanting. What is the Daimoku? And beyond that, what do these syllables, vibrations, words, they're not really, they're characters that represent concepts. And we use words to try to define what they mean, and that's where it gets confusing to a lot of, especially early practitioners. So, this Gosho is significant in that it really breaks a lot of it down. It doesn't tell you the whole story, but it tells you a heck of a lot. It's not a short one either, but it's not nearly as long as the opening of the eyes. But I thought I'd spend a little time reading on this one, because even if you've been practicing like me for over 40 years, it's essential to go back and review things. And like all study, when you go back and review things that you think you already know, and you knew them when you studied them, later on in life, as time goes by, as we learn more with our more experience, we can reread the same material and have new perceptions, new aha moments, and in that way, really deepen the profundity of our practice. So, without further ado, the Daimoku of the Lotus Sutra, Nichiren, follower of the great teacher Konpon Dengyo. Namu Myoho Renge Kyo. Question. Is it possible, without understanding the meaning of the Lotus Sutra, but merely by chanting the 5 or 7 characters of Namu Myoho Renge Kyo? Once again, I repeat this a lot for those of you who may be watching this video before any others. When he says 5 or 7 characters, what he's saying is the Lotus Sutra teaching is conceptualized by what we would call in the West a title, but it's not a title in that it's a assemblage of words so much as it's a title, as what we also do in the West understand as a shorthand or synopsis to the entirety of a lesson or book or writing. Okay, and that title is Myoho Renge Kyo, and we'll get into the meaning of each of those characters in this Gosho. The Namu part is a practitioner's mental preparation, determination, and resolve. That's what those 2 characters signify. So those 2, Namu, with Myoho Renge Kyo, 5, is 7. He never talks about 6 characters. There's no abbreviations in here because, again, they're not words, they're concepts. So how do you abbreviate a concept without missing something, right? So Namu Myoho Renge Kyo is the entire Daimoku, the 7 characters, if you will, of the Daimoku. But he also references it as the 5 characters of Namu Myoho Renge Kyo. All right, so moving on. But merely by chanting the 5 or 7 characters of Namu Myoho Renge Kyo once a day, once a month, or simply once a year, once a decade, or once in a lifetime, to avoid being drawn into trivial or serious acts of evil, life unaffirming, to escape falling into the four evil paths, which you can look up. Those paths are the lower worlds of the 10, the hell, hunger, animality, greed, excuse me. Well, I'll just let it happen. And instead to eventually reach the stage of non-regression. Again, is it possible, without understanding the entirety, the meaning of the Lotus Sutra, by just chanting this Daimoku, for us to achieve this enlightenment? And the answer, of course, yes, it is. And he has to answer that way because everybody's on a different it's hard, language falls apart here, but not all of us, like anything else, have the same life experience, or for that matter, are prepared to understand concepts from childhood to adulthood. We all start in a different place, we all understand things slightly differently, and we all come to realizations through our experiences in life. So for some who are already have been studied in many ways in other areas, come to this teaching simply by chanting the Daimoku, will have immense epiphanies and it will change their life. For most of us, however, it takes some time, right? And it varies for everyone. So he, of course, answers, yes, it is. That's not to interpret, though, as that anybody who chants Daimoku will instantly arrive at their full awakening and enlightenment. That's not what this means, okay? Question. You may talk about fire, but unless you put your hand in a flame, you'll never burn yourself. You may say, water, water, but unless you actually drink it, you will never satisfy your thirst. Then how, just by chanting the Daimoku of Namu Myoho Renge Kyo without understanding what it means, can you escape from the evil paths of existence? Now understand the question-answer thing is his device for teaching, right? This is all Nichiren. He's not talking to anyone specific. Well, he's talking to all of us, but he's choosing this question and answer format to teach. So, now he answers. They say that if you play a koto strung with a lion's sinews, then all the other kinds of strings will snap. And if you so much as hear the words picked plum, your mouth will begin to water. Even in everyday life, there are such wonders. So how much greater are the wonders of the Lotus Sutra? Now, probably don't need to break that down too much for you, but what he's suggesting is that with our human minds, simply invoking a concept already imbues you with some experience of it. Certainly when you say pickled plum, you don't have all of the textures and the joys and changes that go through your mouth when you actually eat one, right? But you have enough of an idea that penetrates your mind that you can call upon those experiences to have a sensation, my mouth is watering, of that pickled plum, right? So this is what he's saying, is that you don't, even if you don't understand the meaning of the entire Lotus Sutra, or any of the teachings for that matter, just by talking about it, by mentioning it, by putting it in your mind, bringing it forth, invoking it, you can't help but experience some of it. Perhaps not the full enlightenment, but you will experience it, right? So, we are told that parrots, simply by twittering the Four Noble Truths of the Hinayana teachings, were able to be reborn in heaven, and that men, simply by respecting the three treasures, were able to escape being swallowed by a huge fish. Now, these are all folklore, right? How much more effective, then, is the Daimoku of the Lotus Sutra, which is the very heart of all the 80,000 secret teachings of Buddhism and the eye of all the Buddhas, how can you doubt that by chanting it, you can escape from the four evil paths? Now, that's a very important paragraph, because a lot of people don't understand, even students of Buddhism, that each time you enunciate Namu Myoho Renge Kyo, you are invoking resolute mind, not only in the Lotus Sutra teachings, but the entirety of Buddhism. And this is something I go into a lot in other videos and all by itself when I did the series on the Lotus Sutra. In order to truly get to the profundity of meaning in the Lotus Sutra, you really have to study the earlier Mahayana teachings, even the Hinayana teachings. You need to study, and this was the exhortation of Shakyamuni Buddha himself when he first started out. You must read the entire canon of Buddhism and study it. Not just read it, but study. They're very similar, right? But study implies contemplation about what you've read in its entirety, and even beyond Buddhism, non-Buddhist commentaries, because only then will your specific experience of life, your specific experience of the evaluation of life, your life, others' life, the process of life, the entire universe and beyond, is specific to you. And although many of us, if you gathered 1,000 of us in an auditorium and we all read and listened to the same lesson or lecture was the word I was looking for, we would all get a lot of the same things. But even and this is what Buddhism repeats over and over again, and I will say it this way, even if all of us agree on a language to discuss what we think we've what epiphanies we may have experienced and what we think we understand, we may come very close, if not identical, in the words we use. But the point is that each one of us would understand each word that comes out of our mouths and other people's mouths through our own filters of experience. And this is why you see throughout Buddha's teaching the concept of immeasurable, incalculable, right? The grains of sand analogies. Because always, always, always present in our minds needs to be the idea that no matter how well we understand our path to enlightenment, awakening, the expedient means, the stories to give us our moments of deep introspection and understanding, that it is only our particular understanding. And it is only, and here's the Bodhisattva part of the practice, which makes it complete, it is only through discussing our impressions with others, hearing their impressions differ and similar, and that we will then iron out where our understandings maybe fall short, maybe simply help somebody else grow, or what blinders maybe we had or what blinders others had. Everything leads to more study and deeper understanding. This is the process of full awakening. This is what's meant in all of the teachings about partial awakening, or, this comes up a lot with Theravada, Hinayana, and so forth, that are provisional in their enlightenment, but not full, not totality of enlightenment, can only come through reaching it for yourself and with, not, you could say for others, but there's a certain aspect of that identifies a difference, and there really isn't. This is the full enlightenment, is when that difference disappears, and all of it is Buddha mind. Yours, theirs, ceases to exist, and it just is the process of life. That is a very difficult place to reach, but you will only reach it through the study of the Lotus Sutra. And the Daimoku, Namo Myoho Renge Kyo, stands on the shoulders of all of the teachings, but it doesn't diminish them. if anything, it shines a light on all of them, because they are the teachings that lead you to the deeper understanding of the ultimate teachings of the Lotus Sutra. Does that make sense? So it's very important, and that's why I want to spend time on this, that we understand that we're not just chanting magic words, as I've heard it said. These are not magic words. These are, that's like saying that the cells and molecules and atoms and electrons and the genealogy of your entire family and every cell that makes up your body are just inconsequential pointers to truth, when in fact you simply wouldn't exist without them. They are part and parcel of your life. So if you think of the Daimoku, Namo Myoho Renge Kyo, as the pulse, the vibration of life itself, not just you, not just me, but life itself, these beads, that grass, those flowers, the trees, the dogs, the cats, the birds, your neighbor, whether you like them or not, we're all that tied through that same vibration. And Namo Myoho Renge Kyo strikes that chord. You want to understand what that means? That sounds real fanciful and poetic, but that's not the point. The point is that if you study, you will understand the profundity of what that is. And when we talk about meaning, that's what we're talking about, okay? He continues, the Lotus Sutra, wherein the Buddha honestly discarded expedient means, says that one can, quote, gain entrance through resolute mind of determination alone, end quote. And the Nirvana Sutra, which the Buddha preached in the grove of sal trees on the last day of his life, states, quote, although there are innumerable practices that lead to enlightenment, if one teaches resolute mind of determination, then that includes all those practices, referring to the meaning of the Lotus Sutra. Thus, resolute mind is the basic requirement for entering the way of the Buddha. In the 52 stages of Bodhisattva practice, the first 10 stages dealing with resolute mind are basic, and the first of these 10 stages is that of arousing pure, resolute mind and determination. So though lacking in knowledge of Buddhism, a person of resolute mind, who is determined, even if you think he's dull-witted, is to be reckoned as a person of correct views. But even though one has some knowledge of Buddhism, if one is without resolute mind, then one is to be considered a slanderer and an ichantika, or a person of incorrigible disbelief. So if you're just mouthing the, quote, magic words, then you don't get it. Then you don't have, what does he mean by resolute mind? Let's take a pause there. Resolute mind, resolute to what? Resolute for what? This is the importance of Namu. Resolute to complete, utter enlightenment. Awakening to this non-difference and this preciousness of everything as this non-difference. It's hard to explain. Language gets in the way. Language is specific to each person who hears it, who says it. What I have in my mind, the truckloads of verbs, nouns, and what have you, and grammar behind the same words I'm saying to you that you've heard before in other ways, doesn't come through those words. Only through study, getting to know. It's just like getting to know a friend, or a girlfriend, boyfriend, or anyone. You see them one way at first, and over time you begin to understand not only who, quote unquote, they are, but how they are. And you can start to say things like, oh, if we bring this up to Nancy, I can tell you right now, she's going to say da. Well, it's not because you can see into the future. It's because You studied and understood Nancy well enough over a certain amount of time to be able to predict her response based on how you understand who she is and how she thinks. It's the same with anything you study, and certainly no different with Buddhism. The monk Sunakashatra observed the 250 precepts, mastered the 4 stages of meditation, and was versed in all 12 divisions of the scriptures. He's talking distant past. While Devadatta memorized the 60,000 non-Buddhist teachings and the 80,000 Buddhist teachings, and could manifest 18 miraculous powers with his body. And yet it is said that these men, because they had knowledge but no resolute mind, are now in the great citadel of the Avicii hell. Wow, that's hardcore. So even if you meet a scholar of Buddhism who could just run circles about anything you know about Buddhism and outside of Buddhism and how they're related, if their impetus, their mind is on study and accumulating knowledge about this, without the fundamental desire to actualize it, to invoke it and become themselves fully enlightened, fully awakened, enlighten their Buddha mind, then they actually are acting counter to your Buddha, their own mind development. Of course, they've cast it aside, but they certainly are no friend to you, because they will draw you away from your commitment. True of anything in life, right? Mahakashyapa and Shariputra, on the other hand, lacked knowledge, but had a resolute mind and were determined. And the Buddha accordingly predicted that they would become the thus come ones, light bright and flower glow, respectively. The Buddha stated, quote, "If one should harbor doubt and fail to see that one will fall at once into the evil paths." These words refer to those who have knowledge but are without resolute mind. And yet, contemporary scholars ask, quote, "How is it possible, simply by chanting Namo Myoho Renge Kyo with a resolute mind, but no understanding, to avoid evil paths?" Because if you have a determined mind, then you will study. Just because you don't have all that knowledge now, by chanting Namo Myoho Renge Kyo, you are already setting the goal. And therefore, everything you do, I'm going to take a little break. Something Aristotle said comes to mind here. I'm going to mark this. Sorry. Aristotle said the definition of happiness, something he was asked about quite often. What is happiness? How do I become happy? Where do we find happiness? Aristotle, not a Buddhist. This is what he said. He said, if you set a big enough goal in your life, something that seems almost unfathomable, and you make that the centerpiece of your life, I want to do this, I want to have that, I want whatever your desire is, set that goal. And you're honest about it. You set it up as a life goal, not, I need $50 for blah, blah, blah. But a true life goal, something just bigger than you can imagine achieving in your lifetime. Then Aristotle says, every decision you make, from the time you wake up in the morning to the time you go to bed at night, and even in your dreams, your mind, will be devising ways of achieving that goal. And because every action and thought or deed that you then dedicate your life to is aiming toward that goal, that is itself happiness. If at some point, Aristotle provided, knowing there would be, questions, if at some point in your life going toward that goal, your goal doesn't become as shiny and enticing anymore, or you run into an obstacle in your path toward that goal that you simply can't surmount or you think you can't surmount, then certainly adjust your path. And that may even require that you adjust your goal. But the point is, with the goal, you will be empowered and feel happiness because all your actions will be toward achieving a known goal. Not mysterious, not just plummeting through life, not just waiting for things to happen, but you will be actuating your goal as you work toward it. So those were pretty wise words. Now apply that to Buddhism. Same thing. If you have a determined, resolute mind to attain full enlightenment, your Buddha mind, 24/7, not just in moments, then all of your study, all of your thinking, and certainly your Daimoku, Namu Myoho Renge Kyo, you are actualizing your life itself toward that ultimate goal. Therefore, yes, enlightenment is in your grasp. And as we find in the Lotus Sutra, especially through study, that enlightenment's already there. The only real obstacle is your perception. And the only way to change your perception and open it up to your full enlightenment is through study and practice. Right? Make sense? All right. So 26 minutes. Once again, I have to call it short. We'll continue with this one. But I thought it'd be a nice break and an opportunity for you to just go ahead and throw some questions into the comments. Let me know what you think so far, or read on yourself so that you can have questions and ideas as I present the next video on this subject, okay? Thanks so much for participating. Love and respect all of you. Namu Myoho Renge Kyo. Take care.